Hi everyone. So, you don't know this, but I am freshly 18, and because of this, I decided today that my presentation is going to be on how voting is affected by the media. And what I'm going to start to talk about first is the two types of media we have today. Well, two of the types. And this is, we have our mainstream kind of national state that cover pretty much everything. And then we have our influencers. So, to start with our more mainstream, these platforms are more neutral. They focus on pleasing majority while still informing of what is happening. While influencers, on the other hand, they get to pick and choose and express their opinions more freely as they try and appeal to narrower groups of people. And within these groups of people, they build their own little community around this one person, this influencer. So now we're going to talk about media bias. So your perception of a person can change depending on what source of media you're viewing this candidate from. So, Reuters last accessed October 1st, 2024, says, for example, news media might give our particular candidate more coverage than others, or use more of a critical tone when covering certain candidates. News coverage also might disproportionately focus on policy issues or campaign events that benefit one party or candidate more than the other. In some cases, the media's efforts to maintain balance can create false equivalencies, where two candidates' missteps are treated equally, even if one behaves more egregiously than the other. Now, this may not surprise you. It does not surprise many people that most news outlets are pretty much one-sided. You still have a few that aren't. However, if you're around here, Fox is often seen as Republican, while outlets like CNN are seen as Democrat. And because of this one-sidedness, they often cause you to form bias against the other side's candidate. This bias is, as you would expect, negative, and can, and on a positive note, actually drive up participation in elections because it gets more people to vote against the candidate that their news outlet is slandering. So, in one way, it is helpful to get more people out there voting for our leaders. Media today often decides to focus on different points of a candidate's campaign. Points like immigration policies or abortion, they often speak loud to the people. And if their views are extreme enough, it often drives up participation in elections, as people are very passionate about those things and will vote against anything they do not like. Media is also very sneaky in the way that they will bring to light different points of a candidate's campaign. They will pick and choose to shed some light on things of the past, or even take some things out of context to make the opposition look bad to majority of people. This will bring up votes for their candidate and influence the election that way. So, believe it or not, a big part of elections and winning these elections is simply name recognition. You do not believe how many candidates get left in the dust by their opposition just because they had no media out there. Their name wasn't getting shared, so no one knew how to vote for them. No one knew that they were even on the ballot until they got there and they went, "Who is this guy?" So, media does do some good, especially in driving up the campaign. So according to the University of Oregon, Last Access, November 8th, 2016, says according to a recent Pew Research Center study, 62% of Americans get their news via social media platforms. What they might not realize is that the news that they see is heavily filtered. As you can see, so many people get their news from influencers today. And because of this, the traditional media outlet, or the traditional news outlets, such as news stations or newspapers, are competing with our influencers to gain the audience's attention. And influencers, unfortunately, have chosen to distort the information that they are given to change, to gain more popularity with the viewers. If they make a headline more extreme or more wild, they will gain more viewers, more people will see it, it'll get spread faster, and unfortunately this will often polarize the viewers because of all these extreme views being shared through the distortion of the media. So, Pennsylvania State University, Last Access, December 1st, 2023, says that traditional media outlets continue reporting objective news, says Jabir, but their editorial positions, think of political pundits who offer opinions instead of objective analysis on trending news stories, become more extreme as well. On one hand, enhanced communication technologies enable voters to be more informed of public policies, so policymakers need to take into account this effect and moderate their positions, he said. On the other hand, technological advancements also make information distortion less costly for influencers, leading to a more polarized society. Now, with all this said, the media, the bias, you might be asking yourself, sure, that sounds terrible, but Austin, there's not much I can do about that. You can't really change the media. It's around us. Wrong. There is something you can do, and that is avoid the misinformation. So, the first thing you can do is be headlines. According to Arizona Clean Elections, Last Access 2024, says that false news stories often have catchy headlines in all caps with exclamation points, as I show you above. If shocking claims in the headline sound unbelievable, they probably are. So keep this in mind. The second thing you should be aware of is weird formatting. Now, some articles might have some misspelled words, weird formats, or they even might have some real pictures, but they're going to be taken out of context and they'll just look strange in there. So make sure you're paying attention. Third, you want to be paying attention to the link. Now, the link might not seem important, but they could be copying either a government or a credible site and just changing one or two letters of that URL to make them different. And this is where they'll post the information, but they'll get you on thinking that they are legit. Now, another thing you need to make sure of if this website's looking sketchy is inspect the dates and the sources they use. The timeline could be off, and that could be a red flag immediately if the dates aren't lining up. And then if they're not using credible sources or they're reporting from blogs, information on different candidates, then this is automatic red flag, and you should probably get off that site because they are not giving you the real information you need to make decisions off of. This kind of goes along with the rest of what I just said, but if it's not a trustworthy site, or if you're not sure it's a trustworthy site, dig into it. Nothing of harm can come from just looking into whether you're reading up information from a legit site or if it's just complete false news. Another thing is look into making sure that there's other people reporting on this. If something big is happening, there's going to be multiple people that are going to write on it. If this is the only place on the entire internet that you're finding it, it's probably satire. They probably made it up, honestly. This leads me to my last point. Is this story a joke? So, sometimes false news stories can be hard to distinguish from humor or satire. You need to check whether the source is known for a parody, whether the story's details and tone suggest it might be just for fun. Once again, from Arizona Clean Elections, Last Access 2024. So, all in all, there's good and bad coming with media and how it influences our elections. So, I know when I get to vote for the first time here coming up, and when you get to vote, whether for the first time or for your 3rd time, 100th time, doesn't matter. You need to be careful out there. Take what I said to heart, and please do your research when investigating your candidates. Vote wisely.